Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. Understanding how to draw attention to the most important element in your painting can make a significant impact on the final result of your painting. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from my channel. And let's get started, guys. Throughout this video, I will cover techniques such as creating contrast, value, and composition to help you to create a dynamic focal point that captures the viewer's eye. As you see the reference, I didn't change the composition in my drawing, but I did lower the foreground a little bit closer to the streetcar than it's in the reference. And in the reference, the composition is the steel yard, so there is a lot of balance on 60% or 70% on the right hand side and 30% on the left hand side. And I don't want to create a symmetrical composition, so I didn't change anything on the composition. And I picked a motive that the streetcar and the people walking across is my focal point. So I'll create a darker contrast, and there will be a darker contrast when I mean like the colors will be super bright and the shadows will be a little bit darker. So whenever somebody sees this painting, the focus goes to that part of the painting. So whenever you paint, think about a motive or a place where you want to drive your viewer's attention to. So put more details and spend more time on that part of the area than the rest of the area. So as a painter, you're telling a story and you're also trying to convey a painting where you can drive your viewer's attention to. So that's the importance of being, creating a focal point in a composition. And that also helps you to paint with ease, because if you see this reference, and if you take it and if you try to paint it, you're going to be lost in details. So there's thousands of details there, and we also have to simplify. So simplifying is another thing. It comes by practice, and as you do it, you get better at it. So you can see I did the first wash. The first wash is nothing but I'm seeing the colors of the base color of the reference, and I'm throwing down the wash. And you can also see I simplified and arranged my buildings in such a way that it makes me easier to paint than I'm fiddling with it. And you can see I arranged in such a way that even though there's a building in the midground, I combined as one shape, and I also combined with trees at the midground as well. As on the left hand side, I don't care about that much because my focal point is the foreground, and that's where I want to create a contrast. And you can see the red road, the road like painted red, creates a beautiful contrast, and it will be a beautiful element to create a focal point as well. And you can see I'm also increasing my vibrancy in my pigment. So what I mean by that is I won't be using a lot of water in my brush. I'll be using pigment with less water in it. So it gives the value and which sticks to it. And this is a streetcar, and I want to make sure that the streetcar reads pretty well. The streetcar and the people who walking in the foreground is my focal point, as we decided that's our vision and motive. So I want to focus more on that part of it. So I'm adding the first wash for the streetcar, and so I'm throwing down the wash. I'm also putting a darker wash before it dries out. So it kind of gives that form, it's folding. There's a cylindrical form to the streetcar, so I want to create that forms. So whenever you paint, the one major thing, whatever you do, is creating forms. What I mean by that, your shape have to look 3D. If it doesn't look 3D, it doesn't work. So as soon as I finish my first wash, so let's put details on the background buildings. You can see I don't give that much importance to the details in the background. If I leave it as it is, the painting doesn't work, because I want to have some details in there and shows that I put some effort on it. And you can see it's a really lazy mark, and I'm just squinting my eyes and putting down my wash. And you can see I also put a darker value a little bit at the top of the streetcar, so that also helps to frame our streetcar and the focal point as well. So now I'm focusing on the building on the left hand side, and you can see I'm also putting the details. It's not in my reference because I don't care about the details on my left hand side. The only details I care about are my focal point. So as a beginner, when I started painting, when I was painting, I was spending a lot of time on my midground and the background, and which doesn't serve us in any kind of painting. If you take any kind of classical painting, they wouldn't spend that much time on the background or the midground. Everything, the action happens in the midground and the foreground. And the foreground purpose is to lead us into the painting. The midground is like mostly your focal point is. So you'll be putting more details and everything in it. So now I jumped onto the foreground building. I'm going to be adding a little bit of details in the foreground because since it's the foreground sitting next to the streetcar, I want to create that element to read a little bit better. And since it's also in the foreground, it also helps to create this depth, and I also want to increase the value in my foreground as well. And you can see compared to the background, the midground, the foreground building, I'm putting a little bit darker value so that it comes in the front and the background and the midground goes in distance. And as a painter, and there's another thing you have to create is illusion of depth and distance. In order to create illusion of depth and distance, you vary the perspective from a linear perspective from big shapes to smaller shapes resulting in distance. Another way of showing depth and distance using the values. And if you squint your eyes, if you see, I created a value structure in such a way that the background has a lighter value but the foreground has a darker value. So now I'm focusing on the figure, and as you can see, the figure is also wearing something red, and so I don't want that to be competing with each other, so I will make the red a little bit darker. And there's also a person who is using a e-bike, so I also want to add him because he also helps to give us a shadow contrast for us. So that's the other reason I'm adding it as well. In all the painting I do, I also add figures. Figures is one of the important thing, essential element in a painting as far as I'm concerned, because it gives the scale for the painting. It shows how big the building is and how big is the streetcar and everything around that. And you can see as soon as we added the figure, we kind of get the sense of the scale. And you can see I added three figures and they are sitting in between the streetcar. You can see now they kind of created a triangle shape composition in the foreground to the midground. And I'm also creating shadows which is pointing to the streetcar as well. So we kind of created a focal point, and you can see we draw attention to that part of the area of our painting. So next time when you paint, think about your focal point, where you want to drive your attention to, and try to make your composition in such a way that create shadows and lighting in such a way that it takes us to there. To summarize everything, picking up a subject. The first step in creating a focal point is to pick a subject that will be main focus of the painting. It can be a person, an object, or a scene that has the most significant visual impact and interest, and it have to be of your own reference. And the second one would be a dominant color. So a dominant color can be used to create a focal point too, by contrasting color of a brighter shade, and you can also make the subject to stand out from the rest of the painting. And the third one would be contrast. So using contrasting elements such as light and dark or warm and cool colors, you can also create a focal point as well. And it can also help to make the subject pop and make it more prominent, as I did with the streetcar. The last one would be composition, and this is a really key component of any kind of painting we do. The placement of subjects in a composition can help to create a focal point too. We have to arrange the subjects in such a way that it can create more dynamic angles, and the placements so that we can drive the viewer's attention to the main focal point or the subjects what we are painting. And in this painting we did with the foreground, and we also brought the people close to the streetcar as well. If you enjoyed this tutorial on creating focal point in watercolor paintings, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with your fellow artists, friends and family. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tutorials on watercolor every Saturday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.